Up guys, and here we're going to be talking about elif and else statements. All right, and this kind of supplements if statements right here, and I actually pulled up the previous code because I think these two things can relate very well with each other. Okay, so let's just dive right into it. We see right here we have five if statements. We have one, two, three, four, five, and they're all telling us different things, right? We have the greater than sign, we have the less than sign, we have the equals to sign, the greater than or equal to sign, and the less than or equal to sign. All right. And if you've noticed, all of these if statements relate to each other, right? Because they all have something to do with x and y. And if they relate to each other, it kind of doesn't really make sense for us to write four different or five different if statements from each other. All right, we want all these if statements to relate to each other, and we want a kind of default thing to to set when none of these if statements are true. Okay, so that is where elif and else statements come along. Okay, so we're gonna skip a couple lines down. So we have if x is greater than y, print x is greater than y. Okay? And then we want to move into our next if statement. But before we do that, we want to say elif, all right, because we want to run this right after elif x is less than y. So this is basically telling us the exact same thing as this thing right here, except, we're actually connecting these two statements together saying, hey, they relate to each other. So I want these two to all run at the same time. So elif x is greater than y, x is less than y, print x is less than y. Okay? So we're kind of saying, hey, these two actually relate to each other. Okay? Now we're going to say elif x is equal to y. Print x oh x is equal to y. Okay? So we have two elif statements. Actually, it'd make more sense for us to say else. Else print x is equal to y. All right, and look at where we just did. We have one block of code right here, and this, by the way, all of these will run before we even make it to these if statements. All right, but what it's basically saying is if x is greater than y, all right, then we're gonna want to print out x is greater than y. All right, else, all right. So on the contrary to this statement, else if x is less than y, then we print out this, and then else this else statement right here is just kind of our default. All right, so if nothing is true here, then this must be true. All right, so else is going to always be true because there's no condition to it, right? So we're kind of going off the assumption that, hey, else is true, so we're going to print out of um, this statement right here, or we're going to do any other task that we want. All right, so I'm going to kind of delete all of these things. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and run Mathtivity. And look at this, it says 4 is greater than 3. But what if we actually changed our numbers to 3 is equal to 3? Alright, so 3 is not greater than 3, 3 is not less than 3. So else this must be true, and we're going to execute this code right here. 3 is equal to 3, alright? And so that is basically what else and elif statements are. I'm going to go ahead and write it up here. So elif, all right, so maybe if you have some notes or whatever you're taking. So elif is the same as if, but it is only used when it is when it follows an if statement. I'm going to go ahead and write another line. It follows an if statement. If statement or another elif statement. And I'm going to go ahead and write about an else statement. Else is the default and is commonly um, um, used at the end of the if elif block. Okay? So that is what else and elif statements are. And, as I say with everything else, as you start to build more complex programs, you're going to see why these things are just so useful.